So just give right while they try to get up. Just give it a moment. Okay, I guess she's logging back in.
So sorry. So sorry about that.
Not a problem. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. You will recall that around this time last year, precisely on 10th of February 2022, we held our first Head of Practice program, which was in procuring government business through bids, the rules and strategies. The program featured very competent professionals, which includes Ebube Etudo, Jamil Daudu, Pastor Jagun, Stephen Jagun, and others. Noble colleagues, the ESCO, which I lead, is very committed to improving the lot of member firms of the very branch, and in seeing that firms are empowered to become top-notch and to compete successfully with global standards. You will agree with me that an aspect of a firm growth that needs generous nurturing is the area of building enduring partnerships with growing concerns. Hence, the H.O.P event of today has been centered on a very key concern of our profession and the noble institution. The theme of today's H.O.P is corporate governance and succession. The challenges of efficient corporate governance and succession, which are important for business continuity among real estate firms beyond the founding partners, are areas of interest for the institution. We believe in the wealth of experience, competence, and ability of our facilitators and panelists to examine this topic as it relates to our members and their firms, while highlighting the ingredients needed to build lasting real estate business organizations. I want to thank our able Vice Chairman, Estate Surveyor and Value Agbenga Ismail, a fellow of the institution, and his Head of Practice Subcommittee for again putting up this event for the very branch. The NIESV Lagos State branch continues to show leadership and maintain our model status for over 53 years now because of selfless services and sacrifices of members, such as we have seen in the members of the H.O.P too. My ESCO is very grateful to you all. With the caliber of speakers and panelists that we have for this H.O.P, it is very obvious that all of you, dear colleagues, who are participating in this program today will be refreshing your knowledge tank and advancing your professional knowledge base, as well as coming abreast with current realities of our profession and the real estate economy. We have as our guest speaker, Mr. Sam Koki, who is a top corporate governance consultant and the CEO, CG and QMS. On the panel, we shall be having very competent and experienced company lawyers who are versed in corporate governance. We have Mrs. S.N. Kaji, Dr. Adeoye Adefulu, Managing Partner, Ujujore Adefulu Legal Practitioners, and of course, our own top pilots, very successful partnerships, Estate Surveyor and Valuer, Frank Okosun, a fellow of the institution, and Managing Partner, Knight Frank, and Estate Surveyor and Valuer, Yasin Oseji, also a fellow of the institution and partner of SAS and Oseji. This H.O.P event promises to be very incisive and insightful. I enjoin you to sit attentively and focus, not letting anything, not even the business, to distract you, as you are here to learn we are here to learn this same business even in a better way. I cannot thank our facilitators enough for their sacrifice and impartation of priceless professional knowledge, not only for the purpose of this H.O.P program, but also for the overall growth and development of our noble profession. I welcome you all once again. Enjoy the program and thank you. I will enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the chairman of the very branch.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. We thank you very much for that brief. To continue in our event today, I want to recognize the presence of our president of the Nigerian Institute of Estate Surveyors and Valuer, and all council members that are in this program. Also, we want to appreciate all our attendees. We are sure that at the end of today, you would have gone back home with a bundle of knowledge. All our facilitators and our moderator, we thank you for coming. Without wasting our time, I want to welcome the president of our noble institution, Estate Surveyor and Valuer Jumbo Amayabo, for his opening remarks. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, the Publicity Secretary of the very branch, the Chairman, and all other council members. I'm glad to welcome the guest speaker, Mr. Sam Cookie Jr., CEO, GG, and QMS, the discussants and panelists, our very own Estate Surveyor and Valuer, Frank Okosun, a fellow of the institution and senior partner, CEO of Night Rank, Nigeria. We also have Estate Surveyor and Valuer Hisense Oseji, also a fellow of the institution San Oseji. And we have with us Mrs. Essie Nkadi, corporate governance consultant, Dr. Adeoye Adefulu, managing director, Odojimi and Adefulu, legal practitioners, and the moderator, Estate Surveyor and Valuer Ayo Ibaru, NIESV CEO, Northcote, to the program. I also want to welcome all distinguished noble colleagues and heads of practice participating in this program. We are gathered via Zoom this afternoon for a very important program, Heads of Practice Forum, with the theme, Corporate Governance and Succession. Corporate governance is a system of rules by which a firm or practice is managed and controlled. It provides a framework for attaining a company's objectives. Corporate governance is also a solid panacea in ensuring that succession planning is not only enshrined in a practice, but that proper and competent person or persons are in line to run the practice effectively and ensure continuity. We must either be creators or co-creators of corporate governance and not mere consumers. That is what this program, I believe, is set to achieve or inspire us to become, to get enshrined, entrenched in us. Noble colleagues, series of seminars and professional development program update our knowledge to our with the right focus that will end our relevance today and in the years ahead. I'm absolutely confident that they will simplify the complicated. I hope all of us will find the training useful, and I look forward to the members of our profession making a paradigm shift in line with the reality of today as we continue the transformation of our practices to ensure that we remain relevant in the face of present and future challenges. It is in the light of this that I want to most sincerely commend the chairman of Lagos State Branch, Estate Surveyor and Valuer, Mrs. Olabisi Demola Lade, a fellow of the institution, and the head of H.O.P subcommittee, that is the vice chairman of the branch, SS of Valua, Benga Ishmael, also a fellow of the institution, and the entire executive committee of the very branch for coming up with this crucial and timely topic, which to me appears as a quick response to the developments in the real estate business within the national and global economy. I am very confident that a robust brainstorming awaits all of us today. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, my president. We appreciate you for your remarks, and we are glad that for your opening remarks. Just like you have said, sir, succession plan has been an important governance topic for investors over the years. And one of the things I've also noticed is that investors are always concerned about who takes over from who in private practice. Corporate governance should not also be seen, should be seen as a vital tool for private businesses to develop and manage the company's business with the harmony of professionals and personal relationships. So without wasting much of our time, our moderator, I want to quickly introduce our moderator who will be anchoring the program and introducing our facilitators. Is no other person than SS of Valua Ayo Ibaru. Is an associate of the Nigerian Institute of SS Surveyors and Valuers. He is a chief operating officer and director, research of North Court, where he has overseen all research endeavors and all operational frameworks underpinning the firm's core divisions to provide solutions to government, corporate, and private investors. With a background in investment banking and broad experience in financial instruments, cost management, he leverages network and relationship across industries and his track record on leading teams to achieve development goals. He's a member of the Nigerian Institute of SS Surveyors and Valuers and a Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, an African Real Estate Society, and a Society of Property Researcher. Please welcome SS Surveyor and Valuer Ayo Ibaru. Thank you very much.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to all attendees, those who have registered and who are online with us presently. Also want to thank immensely our panelists for taking the time to be with us today. Just before we started the session, while we're at the green room, so to speak, I did try to share a bit of, just the amount of work that our panelists have done collectively. It's well over 125 years of just governance, succession planning, and so on and so forth. So as a result of today's session, it is my belief that we will have tools and we will understand better what we can do to ensure that governance is as it should be, the center of what we do in our businesses, and then also ensure that we take our businesses across generations. Now, if you do not mind, I have one or two slides that I think might just help put a bit of a foundation on what we're going to be sharing today. And of course, our in-house experts will build on these. So I did find out that according to the European Journal of Business and Management, 95% of family businesses in Nigeria do not survive to the third generation of ownership. Now, this is something that I'm sure our panelists are well aware of, and they are going to break this down and further clarify how we can avoid these kinds of situations. Now, in succession planning, what are the tools that, according to some research from KPMG and North Court, for integrating the next generation. Of course, the first is a formal board of directors. They made it clear to state that it is a formal board of directors, and that's what we'll be looking at today. Of course, we have shareholders agreement, a policy for selecting non-family members. We do have a few businesses represented on the panel that have gone through one and of course two generations and so on and so forth. And then also what is the impact of governance? Because in preparing for this session, I did speak with a few people, and I mean, while they said the source of governance was important, if you really listen to the tone of the voice and the body language, it disagrees with very words that they utter. And governance helps to increase profitability, reduce fraud, and if you just thought to put this out there, the slides will be available for everyone once we are done. Now, considering that our national president has done a bit of the introductions, and we are indeed here to learn from the experts, while I have a summarized version of the profile pages a bit, and then you can always find out more about them online. Earlier in the session, we had Dr. Adefulu. I don't know, join us in the course of our event. So he is the managing partner of Odunjiri and Adefulu, over 20 years professional experience, law and policy, corporate and project finance. He obtained his law degree and was subsequently called into the Nigerian bar. He also holds a master's and doctorate degree from the Center for Energy, Petroleum and Mineral Law, and Policy in Scotland. He was involved with the Petroleum Industry Bill from initial drafts until its passage in 2021. Another person who is also with us here is Mrs. Ese Nkadi. She was also on a while earlier. I suspect she will probably rejoin us or indicate her presence in due course. Mrs. Ese Nkadi, LLM, FTIS, AM, and IOD, is a seasoned lawyer, chartered secretary and administrator, governance professional, board advisor, and trust and succession specialist with over 18 years of experience. She is the deputy board chairman of Queensland Academy Advisory Board, a co-ed institution in Lagos, Nigeria, and some of her previous roles include executive director, Stanbic IBTC Trustees Limited, head governance and Stanbic IBTC Holdings PLC. With this, I want to just state here that she does share that connection to Stanbic IBTC with Mr. Sam Cookie Jr. Our next panelist is Mr. Frank Okosun, FRICS, FNIVS, RSV, who is the current senior partner and chief executive officer of Knight Frank Nigeria, which is arguably one of the leading organizations that provide professional real estate services in Nigeria. He's a member of the International Real Estate Federation, the International Facility Management Association, and an accredited member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. Mr. Hyacinth Oseji, FNIVS, started his professional career in Messrs. Jide Taiwo and Co. And then, of course, he rose to the enviable position of regional partner before retiring voluntarily in July 1999 to co-found OSAS and Oseji. And as it stands now, he has over 30 years of active and competitive practice. I still bump into his people every once in a while, and they're always sharp, they're always accurate, they have a good sense of what they are doing and what they need to get done. Mr. Sam Cookie Jr. is the CEO of CG and QMS. He's a board level professional with broad management and leadership experience. gained through boards and governing bodies and a variety of corporate, professional, and other related kinds of roles. He's a member of the Institute of Directors, Society for Corporate Governance in Nigeria, and a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. He's a former independent non-executive director of Stanbic IBTC, and he has successfully served the role of chair of nominations and remunerations committee. So that means he has a good sense for how to share the money, which is really where quite a number of organizations get into trouble. He's also an corporate governance trainer. Let me state here that the profiles I have read are highly summarized. When you go online, it runs into pages of actual work done, and the results are there to speak for themselves. Once again, I'd like to thank all our attendees. So far, I can see 86 of you. Thank you so much for staying online. And once again, I want to appreciate the organizing committee, everyone at the back end, and also our panelists. This is going to run for about 45 minutes. And so please, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, which we will get to at the end of the panel session, or you can put it in the Q&A box, which we shall answer. Any materials like the slides I provided.
Can I interrupt at the moment?
Yes, please. Yes.
We're supposed to lead with the keynote first from Mr. Cookie.
Okay, fantastic.
So he will lead, and then we're going to the panel discussion.
Yes. So, Mr. Cookie, over to you, please. I think you're muted, sir. I can't seem to hear you.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. My president, chapter chair, council members, great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. And Benga for tossing me into a drum of hot oil. It's good to be here, and it's a great subject you've chosen, and I just want to commend both the institute and the practice committee. Practice committees are the one with this sort of headache to try and move the profession. I too was practice chair at the Institute of Architects, and yeah, so I'm very happy to be here. I have only a few minutes to speak, so I'll just give you an outline of what I'm hoping to do. We have a very strong panel. We've got everything from different industries and so on. So I'm going to run quickly through what I'll call the body of knowledge, because there's lots of it available in many forms. So I'll just answer one or two questions about why governance is important. And then I'll like to make 2 or 3 points. I hope that when I've finished, you'll probably take away 2 or 3 key points. The first of them is that the professional mindset that we all come with, and I am one of you, I'm an architect, can create limitations when you are in business. And one of the biggest challenges that we face is realizing that we are not the business. We perform those things in the business. The other thing that I'd like us to take away is that the best companies do certain things in common. So if you just spend your time researching successful companies, you will find that there are certain things that they do and that consistently show up. And that's actually what governance is about. It's about leadership and behavior. When we talk restrictions, codes of conduct, all that sort of thing. And I just encourage people not to look at it that way. I'd say just look at it as best practices that successful companies use to be successful as companies. And then the last thing I hope we'll take away is that succession is in the asset. I got here because in ruminating, I was looking at talking to surveyors, estate surveyors, and so on. What will we be talking about? And the two words jumped out at me, of course: estate, which is in your name, and what you do, and value, valuers. So I'll touch on that, and I will then hope that to link it to why a lot of the time when we think of succession, we're actually barking up the wrong tree. So let's look at governance itself first. I apologize. I did say that I would not be doing slides, and that is true. There are various reasons for it, but I find that it tends to, and we're not listening. The key thing about governance is really that it's the best practices for running a company. And as I said, the thing I'd like us to start with, really freeze in our minds, is that the companies we use are just vehicles for practice. So whether you're calling yourself a sole practitioner or a partnership or a limited partnership, limited company, PLC, you're actually running an independent legal person. And the way it happens, you're working in a firm, you're 20-something years old, you're encouraged, you're doing your work, and then you start to do PP, as all professionals do. For us, you're drawing on your dining table overnight, and then going to work. And for surveyors, it's similar. And at some point, you say, I beg, incorporate something for me so that I can use my own letterhead and so on for my business. And at the time we do that, we haven't actually realized, but we've given birth to a new independent legal person. It has a birth date. That birth date is at CAC. It has to file its annual health checks at CAC and so on. So that independent legal person in the course of our lives becomes so tied to us that it takes on as incorporated, and we're not looking at it as what it is, an independent legal person. When we've understood that difference, some of our behavior and expectations will change. So the codes of governance that we see generally deal with practices, but you can treat them like a highway code. When you have the highway code, you know which lane you should be in. As you approach a roundabout, just by your positioning in the lanes leading into the roundabout and the indication on your car, every other motorist can tell what you're doing. So in the same way in the business world, the corporate governance codes are meant to give us a map of the environment. It's meant to let us know what businesses are doing. Now, ages ago, it really didn't matter. But if I'm sitting in here and I'm investing in businesses elsewhere, or even doing business elsewhere, I need to understand what things mean when they're happening. So a lot of the things that come out of corporate governance are the highway code for civic behavior of the business entities. Business entities are saying to you, yes, I'm growing, yes, I'm turning, I've changed the person who's driving. So when you change your directors or whatever, you're telling us what's happening in the vehicle. And that is civic communication to us. So if you don't look at it as something that's imposed, you look at it as something that's you engaging with the market, you're more likely to accept what the implications are for corporate governance. The codes also express what society expects. So if you look at, in the highway code, we expect vehicles to be in a certain condition, we have inspections for them. In the same way, society is looking at you and your business and saying that you're a corporate citizen. Because you're a corporate citizen, you can't pump your industrial waste into the gutter and expect your neighbors to do nothing. Civic behavior of your company requires you to have civic responsibilities and civic duties as a company. I'm not talking about us now as individuals. I want us to get this separation things in our head. So society is expressing its expectations in terms of the law, in terms of your relationships with other entities. So when you open your bank account, The bank account is actually a relationship between your company and the bank company. It's not a relation between you and the bank account officer or MD. When you go to the bank, it says, go and get evidence from your company that you have authority to interface with me. You then take that and you establish a corporate relationship between your company and the bank. So this independent legal person has relationships, has interactions and so on, and you are acting on its behalf. Almost all the time you're acting on its behalf. However, because you gave it life, you are working in it, it tends to start to take your character and your culture, and it starts to reflect you in its organizational behavior. And behavior is where I'd like to focus. I'll get there later, but it's the behavioral aspects that I want to focus on today as I speak, just as co-professionals in this thing. The expectation of corporate governance really from all of us is that we will have both entrepreneurial and strategic direction. We'll lead the company and give it strategic direction and entrepreneurial direction. That's really the key thing. And then the other aspect of leadership is execution and delivery. Now, what tends to happen in our minds is that because we are major domo, I'm the top architect, I'm the top surveyor, I'm the top dentist, I'm the, it's me, and I don't separate my execution and delivery, in which I think I'm very good, from the of the company. The assumption is that if I think it's a good thing, the company thinks so too. And most of the things that corporate governance tries to do is to take away that exclusivity that you have to decide all these things and have you work in the interest of the company. Almost everything with governance is in the interest of the company. And that's something that's a dilemma for us as professionals, because everything in the profession is so person-based. And so we live in two different worlds. The business is not me. I'm a professional. I create a business vehicle. I work as a professional in the business, right? My mindset and paradigms I have in my head will impact the way that I work in the business. There are opportunities and limitations from that mindset, which other business people do not have. So I'll just talk through a few of them. We will all recognize them because we're always coming out of professions. But even when we come from professions into business, if we haven't drawn that line and understand which side of it we're on, it can create problems. So the first thing that we all have in common, it's knowledge-based. What we do is knowledge-based. Whether you're a medical doctor, an architect, an engineer, you're knowledge-based. So when we gather at this site, I've come out with my rule, you've come out with layouts and so on. We're all thinking different things. I'm seeing an environment, a community, roads, houses, flats, views of the beach. You're seeing the number of units to be sold and some to be rented and so on. So we're all seeing different things, but as professionals, we're all there because of the knowledge that we have over an extended period. We're doing 7 years, we're doing 5+2, and so on. So that specialized training focuses us very much on the knowledge base of our profession. And until recently, actually, we were not even taught business. It was taken for granted that if you were a good professional, business would fall in and everything would work. Maybe then it did. It's not like that now. Because it's individual based, we tend to be all and all for what we're doing. So when you start the practice, in your mind, you take on staff and then assistants and so on. But they're all assisting Major Domo me, the great specialist who spent years building up all this experience. We're not taking them up as, in a sense, value creators in the business, because I am the value. That approach is not something that you find with just business people. We're also very highly regulated. If you look at the way that every profession, we go through, professional practice exams, we have licenses, we have to renew, we have continue professional development, we need 40 minimum hours of recognized CPD, business of conduct. And until recently, if you think about it, the codes of conduct were written as strict rules for us as individuals. And sometimes they actually prevented us from taking up opportunities in business. I was in the RIBA, practice years, and for a long time, we weren't even allowed to so much as mention our work. We were gentlemen, architects. You couldn't advertise, you couldn't promote your company. It was taken for granted that the professionals don't do that with our status in society. Very true. But as we started to pick out vehicles, partnerships, limited companies, it became almost sort of anti-business to say that you couldn't advertise. So again, for the practice committee, I'd say you have to start looking at how your codes of conduct affect you. So what about the person in business? The person in business enters business because he sees an economic opportunity. He takes any economic activity. If he finds on his way home from the village that he can buy bananas and sell them in Lagos, he'll buy them, sell them in Lagos, and go back, and bring some more. He's not going to need necessarily X years of specialized training. He's basically motivated by the opportunities and the finances that are available. He can change from trading to manufacturing. He can do products, he can do services, he can do one, he can do all, anything. I get that. That sort of attitude is not a professional mindset. And yet the businesses outnumber us in the marketplace. And their attitude is, the skill I have is enough for what I can do. And if I'm working and getting paid and it's working, it's fine. And his code of conduct is actually a common law sort of broader scope about what he can get away with and so on. And the business is easy to transfer. If he decides to have someone run his shop, he transfers it. As a person who's the skill holder, you can't transfer quite so easily. So that mindset is what I'm going to look at in terms of behavior for us as professionals. I'm going to speed up, don't worry. The words that I picked out of your name, estate, the simple way of looking at estate is, the area of land, plots of land, the group of houses that you put together in a planned way. That's one. The other meaning is estate as all the money and property that you own, especially at death is when we tally it all up, so the estate is what you leave behind, which is actually succession. And so everything that has value is property, really. And the thing that I'd like you to hold out of the estate is the sense of title, ownership, controlling interest. Because at the end of the day, when we finished building the estate, the houses have been sold, some have been let, and so on. What remains is the title and some sort of instrument of ownership which can be transferred. When we look at our companies, we're not thinking that way. We're thinking in terms of people. Some of us been in practice, 35 years old on. People who were born when we started business have started 3 businesses, got them valued at whatever, sold and moved on. So we're still here doing profession and, it must be me. So the paradigm requires to shift. So we start to think of our companies as an element of a state, something that we put the other word into, which is value. Our work is to produce value. It's value creation. And value is about some sort of measurement of worth. material worth, okay? So these days you hear of young tech companies valued at so. These ones have just raised $3 million, so, and the company is valued at. That's not an attitude or an approach that we both nationally and sort of professionally have had before. So we're always thinking of our me incorporated vehicle, only in terms of what I can do and increasing the scope of what I can do. But you can actually decide to create value in that business, to make it an asset and create title in that vehicle, which is what governance, shareholding, all those things are. As I said, there's a body of knowledge. I don't want to go that way. We have plenty of lawyers and so on. But if you're thinking in terms of title, capital, wealth generation, and then you can pass that on, then it's a different approach to the way that we look at our companies. So have you thought of your company in terms of its valuation? Is it something attractive to somebody to make an offer for? Even to your staff, is it something they would be interested in buying? What's its character? What's its value creation opportunity? If you're thinking in terms of creating a valuable asset as a business, all of you will tend to work together better than if you're thinking of me incorporated. So this paradigm paralysis, I just want to know the causes of trouble for us as professionals when we look at governance and succession. I think the first problem that sort of jumped out at me is, look, succession means passing it on. Estate is when we die, they tally up everything and then whatever you said, they'll share. So for us as practitioners who are running Me Incorporated, succession touches a sore spot about our mortality. We're actually going to have to stop at some point. We can't keep this up. First flight to Abuja, this, that, the other, whatever. We can't keep this up. So we start thinking succession. We're thinking succession person, not succession to something. It challenges our ego because I'm the specialist. Nobody in my clinic can do this surgery in 27 minutes like me. They're all good though, but I am the surgeon. Me as architect, I can detail, I can design, I can contract, I can inspect. I'm hot. So we come as professionals with this ego, and it's me, and of course my assistants and associates that's solving, not the company that's solving. So when we start talking succession, we start looking for who is it that has this combination of skills? You know, I'm unique. I can do all these things. This one can do A, this one can do B, the other one does C. In fact, the one that does C does it even better than I can. But of course, he can't do A and B. So I'm still major domo. Once you start talking succession, your indispensability in the business starts to nudge at you. Then you can't let go. So you're working all hours. Of course, as the specialist, you will work day and night. I wouldn't say trying to prove, but because you won't let the system run. You won't let the firm as a value creating entity create the value. So it's all on you. Up to now, you've been infallible. Now you're saying you're going to give succession. That means these people are going to have a right to talk and that I will have to take a back seat. These are the sorts of questions that challenge us as professionals. We start to question our uniqueness. I thought I was unique. Okay, I'm unique. In fact, that guy, I'll make him an associate so he doesn't go, but I'll keep him there so that he doesn't become, because, you know, that kind of thinking is still personality thinking. You're not looking at the business and the vehicle and the opportunities it represents, okay? The other thing is when you start thinking of succession, you get a sense of insecurity. Goodness me, all the school fees for the past 35 years, machine has always delivered. Now you're saying succession. That means these guys are going to enter this formula and the drawdowns and everything else. How am I going to do after succession? Where will my revenues come from? Now, if you were following governance best practices, your company would have been preparing frameworks to look after. You would have had the, insurance, you would have had health things, All those things will be in place because that's what governance is. It's running the company. But if it's me incorporated, suddenly the idea of succession starts to make us feel insecure. And there's a tension between investing in building that asset, which is the business, and investing in solving my needs before I let these people in. And then what does that do? It surfaces trust issues. You mean when all these major fees come in, these guys are going to have equal say and whatever it is. And all the unstated trust issues start to rear their heads. Transparency issues, because if you're going to do governance, you're going to have to open the book and they all have to be behaving for the system, for the company. It's no longer me incorporated. So the big challenge I see with professionals as we talk with firms and so on, is that these are things they're holding. They're finding it difficult to submit to a system of authority of the business, to a system which makes the independent legal entity create value and reward them to work in it. When you get succession right, you move from working in as a professional to working on as a business owner. You're not working in the business right now, you're working on the business as an owner. And that means you will submit yourself to things. Part of the challenge you have when you drive Lagos streets, we all know the traffic law, highway code, but I'm a big man, so I take my Range Rover and my sweep car onto the other side and I drive up a one-way road. Governance says I can't do that. I have to submit to the code. I must sit on that side and wait until we move. Now, what that should say to you is, go and learn to change the traffic points so that everybody can move. But the individual, rugged individual that we are as professionals is finding it hard to submit. So these are the things that I thought I'd share, which we've seen in talking to and dealing with companies, trying to help them get past these bottlenecks. If the thinking changes, if we get past the paradigm paralysis, which we have in terms of us, our profession, our ownership, our exclusive control, our just everything me incorporated, and start to look at a collaborative framework in which the system and the business produces value. It will be able to back off, and we won't have that sense of, okay, I'm no longer useful, vacuum of activity. So now when I leave, they'll just be there and they'll be doing whatever, and all that turnover, I won't be inside. But what you actually own is an interest in the company. You don't own it, even if you incorporated it. And you also do have a choice. Why do you want the firm to succeed you, actually? After all, we've had to face our mortality. We're going to die. So why don't we wrap up and say, I've retired, sell everything, and keep the money and spend on the beach? So the idea of succession and sustainability is actually not inevitable. You can decide to wrap it up. CAC allows you to wrap up and finish and sell and go. So it's that ego again that says, no, the firm must survive me. The business must survive me. And we start to look at our children. You can have a dozen children, doesn't give you a football team. If they don't like the game, they ain't going inside. And they're all over the place. So if you think of them as having to occupy the house, they have to live in that house for it to be considered as a succession, then it won't work. What you can do is that you can give them title to that house. They don't have to live there. And the title is what moves. That's what transfers. So it's our title and our interest in our business that is where the succession lies. But most of us, because of the personality paradigm of professions, which is so strong, start looking for individuals to replace us. And even when you've identified one, their lives may go in a different direction. They might jump out tomorrow. So the success of transition is actually the transition from a mindset paradigm of the professional that does everything himself to a professional that uses a vehicle to produce value. And that value, his title in it is what he passes on. So I think I'm about, yes, you did give me 30, so I'll finish up now. As a professional, you're working in a business, but your asset is the business. Best things for that asset, which is what corporate governance and business leadership is all about. When you've got that distinction, you can work as a business owner on the business, take decisions on what the business needs to be doing, whether it needs to be expanding, whether it needs new territories, whether it needs to consolidate in one area. Maybe we're actually only going to do orthopedics and not be a general person and so on. You need to think in terms of the business as a value creating thing that's attractive, that has some sort of deed that allows that interest to be passed on. So the succession, I'm hoping that this will generate some palaver, is in the item of value. And what you need to create is the business that has value as a value generator. Set up systems in that business. That means that it's not just you, that those your unique skill sets may not be found in one person, but the company can find it, those skill sets, in 3 or 4 people who, working together, will probably outperform you and probably not have to live in the office day and night. Set up the transparent systems, governance systems for how the leaders interface for execution and delivery, because that's what your customers want, is execution and delivery. But don't mix your personal estate with your real estate, with your estate when you've gone. The firm is your real estate. That's the succession that you should invest in. Your son or your daughters, your whatever, it's very good for them to be in the business. It's very good for them to understand the business. But just as you pass your shares in breweries and factories and tech companies to them, so it's your shares in your value generating entity that you will pass on. And if you all have that attitude, people will come, they will serve, they will contribute to value creation, they will go. And whatever the company is doing for people who are coming and going, it will do for them, as it had done for you also before. So you will have the opportunity to see that entity which you wanted to outlive you continue, because companies, as it says, perpetual succession. Now, governance is about setting up that system such that the company is self-generating. Ways of appointing new directors, new leaders, taking on new partners, exiting others, retiring them. That's corporate governance. But the corporate governance is the rules for the business and the system. And just as the highway code talks about rules for various cars, saloons, trucks, HGVs, and so on, and the people that drive them, so the corporate governance code is addressing the kind of vehicle you have, partnership, limited, whatever, and the people that drive them, that lead them. If you can change your paradigm, then you can start to invest in succession. So you don't wait till you've practiced 40 years. You set up a business now. So if you're 25 and you're listening, this is where it's going. Because that me as a professional with the special, in fact, the world has changed. That model is not going to last very long with me as a specialist. You're going to have to work in vehicles in a collaborative way, in a value creating way. And that's where the governance comes early and becomes the character and culture of the company. So when people join, they understand what's there. They add their value, and when they leave, they still look back and say, yep, I'm one of those. When you meet your Oga, somewhere, say, yeah, that's my Oga. Everything I learned there, that was, that's what's made me. In the same way, when people meet your staff, they will know that they came from a system that worked. It's not about they just watched you. It's about imparting to them the discipline of the system and order of that business. So when they go out, and your asset will have increasing perpetual sustainable value. I hope that that makes some sense. I know that there's a lot that will be discussed and talked about, but I'll stop there. And I hope you found it useful.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. It's good to know that this session is being recorded. So I assume that part of this, if not the entire recording, will be available to the public. That will depend on what the institution wants to do. But be that as it may, thank you very much for the perspective that you brought from your decades of experience on this matter. It's something not many people want to come to terms with, their own mortality. And then, of course, you did raise strong points, which I put down here around pretty much handing over the business to challenges that all that present. I quote now, it's the same in Japanese, it's the same in Scotland, and it's the same pretty much in England, where they say shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, meaning that no matter how great a business is, it isn't managed properly or handed over properly. By the time it's at the 3rd generation, there isn't much left. So thank you. Attendees, please, you can chat your questions, or you can raise your hands and we will give the opportunity to ask your questions after the panel session. So once again, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you, and also, of course, our panelists. We had done the introduction of each of the panelists before I got to a revised program of events. So I don't know if Dr. Adeoye Adefulu is online. I know he's been with us for quite a bit. So that we can kick this session off with him. Thank you very much. Great having you here. You are the managing partner of Odujiri and Adefulu, and you recently celebrated a milestone. Anyone can go to your website. There's so many pictures there. Clearly, you had a good time, and this is possibly one of the better succession stories. Okay, I would like to make a comment here at the back end. So changing the screen, all of that. It's if you can help, just let's tone that down a bit. It's a bit distracting, right? Please. I know you're trying to do a good job. Thank you so far for what you've done. But let's just keep this where everyone can see each of our panelists. That's why. And we are here. So the first question to you, Dr. Adeoye, what do you think the challenges are that organizations face when transiting from one leader, to another leader in the next generation? What are the problems that they typically face, and what do you think the solutions are?
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you, Ayo. Thank you and I would also like to say thank you to NIESV's Lagos chapter for inviting us to talk. And before I answer your question, I'll do 2 things. The first is I'd like to thank Mr. Cookie, whose excellent presentation
was thorough.
it was as much as I think I've heard these things over and over again, Mr. Cookie has a way of breaking it down in a very simple manner and challenges, I think, you know, your inner biases. And I could hear a few things that I had in my mind, like these people that are coming to share money with me, etc., etc. I think as professionals, we will go through it. So thanks, Mr. Cookie, for challenging us. Look, the second thing is to share a bit of a background about who we are and why that's important in connection. So this is not advertisement for the firm, but I think it's kind of important in the context of where I'm answering the question. So our firm is Uduje and Adefu, and yes, my name is Adefu, but I am not the Adefu or Uduje and Adefu, the one that started the organization. We celebrated our 50th anniversary in November last year. So we have gone through some kind of succession between his partner, who started the firm in 1972, and is now been handed over, I guess, to second generation, which includes myself and the other partner, Senator Odujiri's daughter, and two, obviously that is unique, is the fact that we've gone through this second generation transition and we've had to deal with, you know, it's tough enough. Mr. Cookie points to how difficult it is when someone is trying to hand over their baby, because the firm is their baby. Does this person have the skill set? Does this person have the capacity? Does this person think like me? Can this person move to the nation? Difficulty, but I think it's doubly hard when the person dealing with on the other side is your son, etc. And those are some of the challenges that we've had. So what are the around transition? I'll point to, there are quite a number of difficulties, but I'll point to maybe three things that we can identify. The first is the way in which, as we've talked about, as